Hello, my friends. This is Coach Aaron Saft and the Running is Life podcast. Today, I've got a solo episode. Next week, I'll be recording with my friend Zach Dean, one of my athletes who just completed the Brooch Challenge as well as Hellbender. So we've got a lot to talk about next week. Excited for that conversation. Also, going to have a conversation with one of my other athletes who unfortunately had a copperhead snake bite. I'm going to talk about that experience and what he went through, and just kind of a heads up because it's that season where we're seeing a lot more snakes and potential hazards on the trail. But today I want to talk about um, just an idea that came to mind, maybe a little bit late, but maybe this is a resource for you for the future. And it's about signing up for races and what to think about if you're going to sign up for a new race. Because I have a lot of times, some athletes that have some awesome goals, no doubt, awesome goals, but there's a few things that they don't think about ahead of time, and I don't think they get out of the training what they want to because they didn't think about some variables or factors ahead of time. And we can all be guilty of that, myself included. The when I didn't think that the track season would consume so much time that I wouldn't have as much time to train. So things happen, they do. But if we can think about these variables ahead of time, we save a lot of frustration on the back end. So like I said, before you sign up, some things to go through. I'm going to put this all in the show notes as well, so you have kind of a checklist to kind of think through. And maybe these are just things that you hadn't thought of prior, and you can use for the next time you sign up for a race. So I hope they help. So as I was just talking about, do you have the time to train for this event? That's a really tough question. You have to think about your commitments and what they are and how much time they will take from your schedule. And then with those thoughts, how can you fit in your training, your runs, your lifting, your mobility, all of that stuff? Are you going to be able to fit in what you need to fit in? The maximum volume, especially, when you start getting to those longer and longer runs and adding more volume to your schedule, are you going to have enough time to get it all in? So think about your commitments, think about your family obligations, right? Think about what you have every week and weekend. What do your kids have to do? What does your wife have? So those are conversations you have to have with your family and your significant other. What level of guilt will you feel for training? That's a really tough question, especially if you haven't experienced training for something in the past. But if you have a hard time being away from your family and you have to go do a 4 or 5 hour long run, you're going to have a really hard time with that on the weekend when it's family time. So you have to think about those things, in advance. Are you okay with getting up early and getting it done before your family wakes up? That's what I did this morning. Those of you that saw me on Strava, I was up at about 2:50 this morning. I was out the door about 3:15. I got in a 50K this morning, and I was home before my kids woke up. I was done by like 8:30, 8:45, something like that. Um, it's summertime, so I had a little bit more time, but it's the sacrifices you have to make sometimes in order to get these things in. So think about your level of guilt. How will training make you feel, and are you willing to compromise and do something different with your schedule? Make yourself get out there earlier. Do you have the vacation time to be able to do the event? I remember when I was teaching, it was really hard for me to get time off during the school year in order to go compete and do events. I just didn't have the time as a new teacher. So think about that too. Do you have the ability to take the vacation time or the time off of work? And then, as I mentioned earlier, do you have the time for your ancillary training to do your strength training and your mobility? So make sure you have some extra time in there to do these things so you can stay healthy and make it through the training cycle. So all things to consider when you're thinking about, do I have time to train for an event? Then the big question, are you healthy enough to do it? Right? Do you have any injuries that are popping up? Anything long term that would potentially could take you out of the training cycle? I mean, is there underlying issues that you should resolve ahead of time? Should you go see a PT or a sports ortho and find out what's going on and find a solution so that you can get healthy and be 100%? Because you should be 100% prior to any training block. So, my son, he's finishing up this weekend for an example. He's doing nationals and he's had some insertional Achilles problems at the end of the season here. It's been a long season, and it's a lot of wear and tear when you do these, high intensity events. So, I can tell he needs the break. So, he asked me like, what do I do after nationals? I said, you just take some time off. He's like, well, can I cross train? I said, yeah, you can cross train. I don't want you running. That's for sure. I don't want anything impactful because that's what's causing the problem is the impact. So we're gonna do just some strength training. That's for sure. He's got physical therapy that he's been doing. But again, you have to be healthy enough to train because he wants to do cross country. So he has time, that we have a built-in off period, which is great. These kids, I want them to be 100% when they come to me. So you should be 100% when you start your training block. So make sure you're healthy enough to start the training block. And think about those things before you sign up. If you're injured and you know that you're still healing from an injury and that's going to eat into your training block, are you going to have enough time to train for the event? Or in other words, do you have enough weeks leading into the event to be able to train properly and be well prepared for this event? So again, think about your prior injury history and plan to stave off repeating in that injury. Okay. So again, what plan are you putting in place to keep you healthy? Then assess your goals and try to be realistic with your time constraints. Is it realistic for you to train for this and achieve your goal? Right? That's hard. And as I did with Bigfoot, you may have to reassess and reanalyze and change your goals. That for those of you that don't know, when I ran Bigfoot 2 years ago, I got COVID about I think 6 weeks prior to the event, and so it left me 4 weeks, 2 weeks off from COVID. The fatigue was just really bad, and it left me with 4 weeks to kind of train. I was in my maximum volume phase, really important, obviously, for a 200 miler. So I realized that, those down 2 weeks did take a toll on me and that I had to reassess, that I had to be okay with redefining my goals. So, it changes even when you're in your training cycle, but ahead of time, think about those factors. Think about your time commitment. Think about your ability to train for an event. If you don't have a lot of time to train for this event, be realistic with what you expect from the event. That's the big thing. And then what's your prior experience with the distance? Have you ever run this distance before? Is it a new distance to you? So, in thinking about that, think about um, what else it's going to take for you to get to that finish line. Think about how far you've gone, what you've done to get that far. And now think about, okay, it's, this is a new distance. I'll probably have to train with more volume. I have to spend more time per week. Make sure that's realistic for you as well. Think about also, is it within your budget? These entry fees are pretty substantial these days. I know for Bigfoot, that was the most I've ever paid for a race. So, the entry fee can be pretty pricey, but then you have to couple with that the travel to the event, right? Are you traveling with your family? Oh, that's an extra expense. Are you paying for your crew or pacers to get there? Another extra expense. And then gear and nutrition. This stuff, it's not cheap. So you got to think about how many pairs of shoes am I going to need? How much nutrition am I going to buy? Now it's hard to kind of plan that out, but you should have, kind of a line budget to get an estimate of how much is this going to cost me. Plug in there some physical therapy. You may need a session or two with the physical therapist. What's that going to cost? Are you going to hire a coach? What's that going to cost? And then obviously unknown expenses. So your line budget should have the entry fee, estimates on travel for everybody that you're paying for, estimates for your gear and nutrition, let's just say like probably 3 visits to a physical therapist, coaching fee, what's that going to be? And then, plug in there just probably an extra, I would just say, 500 to $1,000 for unknown expenses, because God knows they pop up. That's for sure. So think about, is it within your budget? Now, we kind of talked about the family, so you need to discuss this with your family and your significant others to make sure they're on board, and they know both your expectations and what to expect, right? So not just for race day, but for training. What should they expect from your time commitment to this event? So how much are you going to have to train? What's your volume going to look like? How much are you going to be out, especially on the weekends? Because that's typically the family time, right? So think about that and have that conversation. Make sure they're on board, because that will help with that family guilt later on. Because they understand what your goal is and what you're trying to do. You need them on board. So I've talked about that in the past. That's a huge step. Make sure you're having that conversation. Then research the race itself. Looking into the race itself. Are you able to train safely to meet the demands of the race? Those demands can be such things as heat, altitude, vertical gain and descent. So, are you able to train for these factors? Are you able to accommodate what this race is going to throw at you? That's huge. That piece is big. I think a lot of people underestimate a lot of these things. Sure, it's cool to do Western states, but are you able to heat train? That's a huge piece of Western states. It's awesome to do races in Colorado, but are you able to do anything about acclimating to altitude? And yeah, and it's awesome to do mountain races wherever you go. Mountain races are wonderful. They're beautiful. They're awesome. But are you able to do something to acclimate or to get yourself ready for the up and down of a race? So definitely things to consider. Then look into what others say about the race. Is it good for your ability or your experience level? Have people done it that have, similar experiences to you? Have they stepped up in distance and this has been a good experience? What type of races have they done? Are they similar to what you've done? Reach out to people, reach out to them on social media. Our network is amazing. Our community is amazing. People love to help others. And that's the wonderful thing about ultra running and running in general. People love to help each other and talk about their experiences and share with them what they've done and what their expectations were. And, is it suitable for yourself? And that's what you have to decide. But hearing from others will help you understand the race and what to expect from it. Then look into the race to see if it allows for support in the form of crew and pacers. And do you have access to knowledgeable and capable people to do these roles? Right. So, I've got a few runners that they just don't, they haven't, tied into the network yet. They haven't tied into the community. So they don't have a lot of these resources. And, they're relying on crew members that have never done anything like this, in the past, and this is for their goal race. That's hard. That's scary. um so it takes a lot of educating, on my part as well, to teach them what's the expectations. We have Zoom calls and go over things and what are they supposed to do, how are they supposed to do it. And there's some wonderful resources out there. The crewing and pacing book is just a fantastic resource, and I'll put that in the show notes. So there are great resources out there. There's some great YouTube videos, how to crew and pace. I've done podcasts in the past about how to crew and pace. So find these resources, educate your crew and pacers, especially if they don't have much experience. Make sure they know what their roles are. And if you don't know what they should be doing, then you need to start asking, what roles do I need to assign? What are some ideas? How can I do this? Ask questions. Do not be afraid to ask. Certainly. And by all means, reach out to me. I am a resource. I do have, like I said, I have podcast episodes. I have YouTube videos. I mean, there's tons of things that, I can point you to or I can help with. So don't be afraid to ask. Then think about what questions do you have and who can answer them for you, right? So, just going over the crew and pacers, that's one. But like, training questions, who's going to help you there? Injury, who's going to help you there? Fortifying your mental game, who's going to help you there? What resources are you going to use? What are you going to do? So think about who's going to be your team, right? And that's the next piece. Who is going to be your team or resource moving forward to help you train both physically and mentally? This can be such people as training partners, sports orthopedic doctors, physical therapists, a coach, a mental performance coach, strength training and mobility coach, your crew chief, your crew, your pacers. And then it can also be somebody to refer to for nutrition and hydration, a dietitian or nutritionist. There's so many questions out there, right? So you have to have your team around you. Form that team. Think about who's going to help you, especially answer some of these questions and um, help you along the way. I mean, there's some great books, as I said. I refer to a lot of the books in this podcast. I love books. I have so many books, and they're great resources. I go into them and look into them. I looked into a book today to answer a question for a runner because if I don't know, I got to find out. They're asking me for a reason. So, of course, I don't know everything, and that's why I have so many books. But, again, I have the resources to dip into. And if I don't have a book resource, if I don't have a media resource or a video resource, then I ask others that I trust in this community, other coaches, other runners. I ask my wife a lot of questions because she's a doctor. So, there are people around me that I can ask to get these answers. And that's what you need to find is places to get all the answers you're looking for. Then lastly, and this is a huge one, and we've talked about it in the past, determine your intrinsic and extrinsic whys. What are you doing this for? Why are you doing this? And as I said in the past, you can't solely do something for a prize when it gets to ultra. It's just not a strong enough why when you go deep and dark. And that's for real. You need to know why you're doing this, and it needs to be deep. It needs to be emotionally tied, and you need to figure it out. And it doesn't have to be right away. You may not even have to do this prior to the race, but you should have a good idea of what's going to drive you when things get rough. So make sure you have that plan. Make sure you have that ready and that it's solid and that you're fortifying it along the time you're training. So keep after it. Keep evolving that why. Make it stronger and stronger. Understand it, know it, make sure it still holds true. Okay. If it doesn't, again, you have to change it because you need that on race day. But that's a big piece. A lot of times when I talk to a new ultra runner, they come to me and say, I want to run 100 miles or I want to run 200 miles. I've never done it before. My first question is, what's going to motivate you to get out there on a daily basis to train? And what's going to motivate you on race day? What are your whys? And, if they don't have one, I suggest they read Addie Bracey's book, Mental Training for Ultra Running. I think that's such a great resource. I think when you look at that book, there's so many exercises that can help you to get these mental tools and determine your intrinsic and extrinsic whys that on race day, you'll be ready to roll. So make sure you got that. That's short and simple list, but I think if you go through these things, when you sign up for a race, you're going to feel a lot more confident going into your training if you've knocked it off and crossed your T's and dotted your I's with all of this. So make sure you go through it. Okay. Like I said, I'll put this list in the show notes. All right. So as I mentioned, number of things going on here. Kids are racing nationals this weekend. It's our last outdoor track meet of the season. Very excited for the kids. So excited we got to this point. I'm so excited they're going. It's such a great opportunity for them. So that's this weekend. And that's why I did the 50K today. I, had to get it done because I knew the kids will be racing all weekend and I'm not going to have time for a long run. The meet is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I had to do something, wanted to get it in. So got it in today, kind of doing my big training camp weekend, if you will. So plan to get in about 100K of running over the next 3 days. So 50K today. I just did an out and back from my house because that's what I had limited time. I had about 5 hours. Already waking up early enough. So it wasn't big vert, but it was good time on feet. I really haven't been really too pleased with where my fitness has been. So Monday, I did another progression run. I've been doing a lot more progression run and strides, trying to get my turnover back. Because like I said, I just haven't been pleased with where my turnover's at, and my average pace. So working on that, definitely much better. That was the fastest that I've run that 50K in a long time. And I got 50K in much shorter amount of time than I have in the last 4 years. So very pleased with that. Things are coming along, and I'm trying to be patient, but it's coming up quick here. July 19th is race day, so making sure that I get in the training. So yeah, I've been doing more strides, more progression runs, still good volume. If you look at training peaks, I've got a 25 miler and a 23 miler in. Got another 20 miler in. I got a 14 miler in. So, getting good volume in. And these are all they're time based, but that's what I'm getting in the time that I had allotted. So I'm doing well on the volume, getting that up and feeling strong. So that's great. I'm really happy that I'm moving in the right direction. Hopefully race day, be ready to go and feeling good. That's my goal, obviously. So High Lonesome comes, it approaches. I'm excited for it. Like I said, we head out July 1. Gonna head out to Colorado and start the acclimatization process and just do some hiking. See the course, get in some good training out there. I'm excited for it. And yeah, I've got a few spots that will be opening up for coaching. So if that's something that you're interested in talking about for the fall, please reach out. I've had a number of people reach out, which is great. I really do appreciate that. And maybe it's best that we start after High Lonesome. I'd hate to start you now. And so maybe after High Lonesome, I'll be back kind of after. Let's see, so that would probably be July 22nd. I'll be back. So if you want to have a conversation towards the end of July about coaching, happy to do so. You can reach out now and just let me know you're interested, and but we can talk more after High Lonesome, because I don't want to start somebody up and then I'm not going to be gone, but a lot of times new athletes have a lot more questions and need a lot more guidance in those first few weeks, and I don't feel it fair to be going out to Colorado and not being fully accessible to a new athlete. So I don't want to do that to anybody. So yeah, we'll save the new athletes till after High Lonesome. But I appreciate everybody. Appreciate everything so much. It's great. I'm looking forward to my conversation with Zach. I got to pace him for the back half of Scar. He just finished Massanutten. Just really cool. So I can't wait for my conversation with him. I hope your training goes well. Again, any questions, comments, concerns, don't hesitate to reach out. Love to hear from you guys. I really do appreciate all the support you guys have shown. My Patreon supporters, amazing. Thank you so much for being a part of this, for helping me keep it rolling. And until next time, keep moving forward. Running is life, my friends.